Hello, dreamers of sleepy science. Welcome back to the quiet edge of the cosmos, where questions drift like starlight and answers unfold as softly as sleep. Tonight, we will follow a thought, gentle, impossible, yet hauntingly beautiful. What if the Earth fell out of orbit? Take a deep breath. Feel the rhythm of your chest, the same rhythm that keeps our planet moving through the vast silence of space. Everything you know, everything alive, depends on that steady, cosmic heartbeat. The Earth circles the sun not by chance, but by balance, a delicate dance between motion and gravity, speed and pull. It is a balance so perfect that even the smallest change would rewrite the fate of our world. Our planet moves around the sun at nearly 30 kilometers per second, fast enough to circle the entire Earth in less than 8 minutes. That speed is what keeps us from falling inward. Gravity pulls us constantly toward the sun, but our forward motion keeps us falling around it, never into it. It's like an endless dance. The sun reaches out, the Earth turns away, and the two stay locked in harmony. If that balance were broken, even slightly, everything would change. If we slowed down, gravity would win. The Earth would spiral inward, closer and closer to the sun, until our oceans boiled and the air turned to flame. If we sped up, motion would win. The planet would slip free of the sun's embrace, drifting away into the dark, frozen silence between the stars. We never think about it, yet this balance is all that stands between fire and ice. Every sunrise, every wave, every breath you take happens because of that invisible thread. Gravity's pull matched perfectly by motion's grace. Right. The orbit is not just a path through space. It is life itself, written in movement and light. NASA calls this the Goldilocks zone, the region where a planet is not too close to its star and not too far away. Too close, and heat devours everything. Too far, and cold seals it in ice. We live in that thin, miraculous strip where water can flow, where light is gentle, and where life can dream. It is the cosmic equivalent of balance, fragile, precious, eternal. And yet, what if that balance shifted? What if, by some cosmic accident, a rogue planet brushed past us, tugging on our gravity? Or invisible force, dark matter perhaps, nudged Earth from its stable path? What if, one day, our orbit wasn't exactly where it should be? It's almost impossible, and yet, in the vastness of the universe, even impossibilities are allowed to dream. So tonight we will follow that dream. We will imagine the sky changing, the sun moving where it shouldn't, the seasons breaking apart. We will drift with the Earth as it falls out of orbit, first gently, then helplessly, and watch what happens when gravity forgets the steps of its ancient dance. But do not worry. This is not a nightmare. It is a story of physics, of wonder, of stillness. For every end carries a kind of peace, and even catastrophe in the cosmos unfolds in silence. So close your eyes if you wish. Breathe deeply. Let your thoughts drift outward, past the clouds, past the moon, past the invisible path we follow through the sun's light. The universe is wide, and we are about to imagine something that has never happened. A world set adrift, a planet untethered from its star. This is not the end of Earth. It is only the beginning of the story of what would happen if Earth fell out of orbit. If you could step outside of time and watch from far, far away, you would see something astonishing. Not chaos, not drifting, but a perfect, endless dance. The sun and Earth do not simply coexist. They move together in a rhythm written by gravity itself. The Earth falls toward the sun, but never reaches it. It moves forward fast enough that its fall becomes a curve, a loop, forever repeating, never colliding. This is the secret of orbit, falling without ever landing. Every second of your life, Earth is falling. Right now, beneath your feet, The planet curves through the void at a speed of nearly 30 kilometers every second. Faster than any sound, faster than any human-made object ever launched from its surface. But you do not feel it. The oceans, the mountains, the clouds, and even your body all move together in that silent motion. We are part of that fall, part of the Earth's graceful surrender to the pull of the sun. Gravity is not a force that drags us down. It is the thread that binds us to everything else. Einstein once described it not as a pull, but as the bending of space itself, a curve that the Earth follows naturally, the way a leaf drifts on a gentle breeze. Space around the sun is warped like a fabric, and the Earth moves along that curve endlessly. To fall out of orbit, then, would be to slip from that curve, to lose the balance that keeps us safe in this invisible embrace. If we could see gravity, it would look like light woven into silk. The sun would sit at the center, stretching the fabric of space around it. Planets would circle in the folds, their paths smooth, effortless, inevitable. Every orbit, every spin, every tilt of a planet's axis is part of this same geometry. The precision of it all is staggering. If Earth moved just a little slower, by only a few hundred meters per second, the sun's gravity would pull it inward. Our orbit would decay. We'd spiral closer, the days growing shorter, the light brighter, the heat unbearable. If we moved faster, we would drift outward, farther from the sun's warmth, into the frozen outer dark, where even sunlight becomes pale and thin. Our current orbit is not luck, it is balance, the perfect point between falling and flying. This balance gives us everything, the seasons, the tides, the rhythm of life itself. When Earth leans closer to the sun, we call it summer. When it tilts away, winter. The oceans rise and fall in a steady pulse caused by the pull of both the sun and the moon. Every flower that blooms, every drop of rain, every gust of wind is part of this vast choreography. It is easy to forget that all of this depends on motion. The air you breathe, the warmth you feel, the night sky above, all of it exists because Earth moves exactly as it does. Change the speed, and everything changes. It's like a perfectly tuned instrument. Even a single note played wrong can throw the whole symphony into disarray. When scientists at NASA simulate orbits, they describe them not as lines, but as dances of energy. The Earth's forward motion gives it kinetic energy. The sun's pull provides gravitational potential energy. The two energies balance perfectly, creating a system that neither collapses nor escapes. This is why our orbit is stable, why the sun has kept us close for 4.5 billion years. It's a relationship both fragile and eternal, an unspoken understanding between fire and stone. But the question remains, what if that understanding were broken? What if the balance failed? If the Earth slowed, it would no longer be able to resist gravity's pull. If it sped up, it would slip free of that curve, forever leaving the sun behind. Both paths lead to endings, one of fire, one of ice, and in either case, life as we know it would vanish. Not in anger, not in sudden catastrophe, but in silence. The quiet unraveling of a system that has lasted since time began. A fall, yes, but a graceful one. Because even in endings, the universe moves in beauty. So as you breathe, imagine this motion continuing around you. The Earth gliding through darkness, balanced perfectly between too much and too little. The sun pulls, the Earth moves, and together they create the delicate tension that gives meaning to every heartbeat, every sunrise, every dream. Hold that image in your mind, because in the next part of our journey, we will see what happens when that balance begins to slip. When gravity wins, and the Earth starts its slow, tragic fall toward the sun. Imagine it begins quietly. No explosion, no warning, just a tiny shift, invisible to almost everyone. The Earth, for reasons unknown, may be a collision with a rogue asteroid. Maybe a ripple of gravitational distortion passing through the solar system slows its motion by the smallest fraction, perhaps just a few meters per second, barely noticeable, yet enough to change everything. The sun, relentless and patient, feels that change immediately. Its gravity, always pulling, finds less resistance now. The balance that has lasted for billions of years trembles, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Earth begins to fall. At first, no one would know. Days would still pass, skies would still glow blue, and the oceans would still whisper against their shore. But within weeks or months, astronomers would notice something strange. The sun's apparent size in the sky would begin to grow. Not much, just a little. But each day, it would rise slightly larger, slightly brighter, slightly hotter. The first measurable sign would be temperature. Global averages would climb. Winters would shrink. Summers would stretch endlessly. The poles would begin to melt, and the sea would rise like a slow, unstoppable tide. Forests would dry. Deserts would expand. The air itself would start to shimmer, as if the entire planet were exhaling heat. As months turned into years, the fall would accelerate. The closer Earth moved to the sun, the stronger gravity's pull would become. The faster we would fall. It would be a spiral now, tightening, unstoppable. Temperatures would soar beyond survival. The atmosphere would grow heavy and violent. Storms of boiling water and superheated air raging across the continents. Rain would no longer cool the land. It would evaporate before touching the ground. The oceans, vast and deep, would begin to steam. At first, mist would rise at dawn like ghosts from the water. Then the mist would thicken into clouds that never cleared. Eventually, the oceans would boil. The sound of waves would fade, replaced by the hiss of vapor and the distant roar of evaporating seas. The sky would change color, no longer blue, but a pale, blinding white by day and a deep copper red by night. It would look almost beautiful, a dying beauty, like the last sunset stretched across eternity. Cities would melt, metal would twist, and the ground itself would crack open as magma surged closer to the surface. Volcanoes would erupt across the planet, their ash unable to cool the air. The protective ozone layer would shatter, and cosmic radiation from the sun would stream directly to the ground, invisible and lethal. In a matter of weeks, life would vanish from the surface, not in chaos, but in silence, as heat suffocated the last traces of breath. Yet, below the surface, some life might cling to existence. Microbes, buried deep within rocks or oceanic trenches, would endure for a while longer, feeding on minerals, blind and eternal. Even in catastrophe, life would whisper its defiance. As the planet spiraled closer, it would pass inside the orbit of Venus. The sun would now dominate the sky, huge, white, and pulsing with waves of plasma. The temperature would exceed 1,000 degrees Celsius. The oceans would be gone, the atmosphere stripped away. Earth would become a glowing ember, a scarred, molten world with rivers of fire flowing where seas once lay. Eventually, it would cross the rush limit, the point where the sun's tidal forces overcome the planet's own gravity. And then, with elegance almost cruel, Earth would begin to disintegrate. Mountains would lift from the surface and spiral into space. Molten rock would stream toward the sun, forming a brilliant arc of light, a ring of debris glowing in the solar wind. And then, it would end. What was once blue and alive would vanish into the sun's fire, consumed not with noise, but with light. The planet would join the very star that once gave it life. It would not explode. It would dissolve, its atoms returning to the source, its essence blending with the solar flame. If such an end ever came, there would be no witnesses, no pain, no fear, only the faint echo of everything Earth ever was. drifting into the brightness, absorbed by the star it had always loved from afar. It's a terrifying thought, but also strangely peaceful. To return to light is not destruction. It is reunion. The matter that formed the seas and mountains, and your very body came from stars once before. And if Earth were to fall, it would only be going home, back into the fire from which it was born. So as you breathe, imagine that warmth, not as danger, but as memory. The sun's light on your face, the golden glow of morning. Those are whispers from the same energy that holds us in orbit. The balance continues for now, but in the universe, everything dances close to the edge. And in the next part of our story, we will see the other part. What happens not if Earth slows and falls, but if it races faster, breaking free from the sun's pull, and begins its lonely journey into the dark. Now, imagine the opposite. Not a slowing, not a fall toward the sun, but an acceleration, just enough to slip free of its pull. Perhaps a massive asteroid strikes at the perfect angle, or a burst of energy from deep space nudges us ever so slightly faster. It doesn't take much. Just a few hundred meters per second more, and the bond between Earth and Sun would be broken. At first there would be no panic. The sky would look the same. The tides would rise and fall, and life would go on. But the subtle signs would appear soon enough. Longer nights, cooler winds, a slight dimming in the sun's warmth. To the eye, the sun would begin to shrink, not in brightness, but in size. A small, almost imperceptible reduction that would grow each day. Astronomers would notice it first. Their calculations, so precise for centuries, would suddenly fail. The Earth's orbit, once perfectly predictable, would begin to drift outward. The sun's gravitational grip would weaken with distance, and each passing year, our world would move farther away, not by millions of kilometers, but billions. The seasons would stretch, the temperature would fall, and slowly, the sky would change color. The sun would fade from brilliant yellow to pale gold, then to a cold white pin of light, still beautiful, but distant, unreachable. Days would become colder, even at the equator. Snow would begin to fall where rain once fell, and frost would creep across oceans. Within a century, the surface of Earth would transform. The tropics would turn to tundra. The temperate zones would freeze. The poles would merge into one endless glacial plain. Plants would die first. Without the sun's steady energy, photosynthesis would slow, then stop. Forests would wither, oceans would darken, and the air would thin as oxygen levels fell. Animals would follow soon after, their breath forming ghostly clouds in the frigid air before fading into silence. Only the hum of human technology, the last flickering defiance of warmth, would remain. Governments would collapse into cooperation or desperation. Satellites, still circling Earth, would begin to fail as solar power dwindled. The great cities would go dark. Humanity would retreat underground, to the geothermal warmth of the planet's core. Massive reactors would ignite in caverns below the surface, their heat keeping small pockets of civilization alive. Artificial suns, nuclear torches, glowing spheres of fusion would be built to mimic daylight, feeding the crops that could still grow in controlled environments. For a time, we would survive. NASA scientists and astronomers would continue to track the sun, now smaller than ever. After a few hundred years, it would appear as no more than a brilliant star, just one of many in the endless dark. The moon would remain, orbiting faithfully, but its pale glow would be the only natural light left. Without the sun's warmth, the atmosphere would begin to collapse, freezing into delicate layers of ice that drifted down like glass snow. Each breath above ground would crystallize instantly. Sound itself would vanish in the thinning air. The oceans would solidify next. At first, thick ice sheets would form across the surface. Then over centuries, The cold would creep deeper until even the abyssal depths froze solid. Beneath that ice, however, the warmth of Earth's inner fire would still beat faintly. Volcanoes, hot vents, and magma currents would keep some parts of the crust alive. Oases of heat in an endless frozen desert. Perhaps, deep underground, bacteria and extremophiles would endure. The last living things on a silent planet. Above, the stars would blaze brighter than ever. Without the haze of the atmosphere, the night sky would become a cathedral of light. Sharp, endless, breathtaking. But there would be no one left to see it. Earth would drift farther still, leaving behind the solar system, the planets, and the familiar constellations. The sun would fade completely from view, lost among the billions of other stars. We would have left our home star forever. In time, the Earth would become a wandering planet, a rogue world, drifting through the void without a parent star. Its path would carry it through dark interstellar space, where temperatures fall close to absolute zero. The surface would be frozen solid, the atmosphere gone, the oceans locked beneath kilometers of ice. But the planet would remain whole, a silent traveler, carrying the memory of sunlight through eternity. Perhaps after billions of years, Earth would pass near another star. For a brief time, its surface would warm. A glow might touch the frozen peaks. But the orbit would not last. The pull would pass, and Earth would continue its long drift. A planet without dawn, without dusk, without time. And yet, even in this infinite night, there would be beauty. The ice would glow faintly with starlight. The continents, preserved in frost, would shine like crystal mirrors. And if one were to stand there, on that silent, frozen plain, and look up, they would see not despair, but peace. The universe would stretch in every direction, endless and still. A grave, yes, but also a cradle. Because even when motion stops, even when warmth fades, the Earth would still be part of something greater. The same energy, the same creation, the same dream of existence that once gave it life. The Earth would not scream, it would not fall, it would simply drift, asleep forever in the arms of the cosmos. It begins with the sky. One morning, perhaps decades after Earth first starts drifting away, the sun no longer rises as it used to. It is smaller now, sharper, colder, like a memory of light rather than its source. The blue of the atmosphere has faded to a dull, washed-out gray. Clouds hang motionless, frozen in place, as if the sky itself has stopped breathing. At first, humanity refuses to believe it. We have always seen the sun as unshakable, the one constant, the eternal pulse that defines our days. Even as scientists warn that our orbit is decaying outward, most people cling to routine. They still wake up to alarms, still make coffee, still glance at the window expecting morning to look the same. But it doesn't. The light feels thinner now, stretched, tired, like an echo from a distant source. Crops begin to fail first. Even in the warmest equatorial regions, the sunlight is too weak for photosynthesis to thrive. Forests fade into brittle brown, their leaves falling not from season but exhaustion. The oceans reflect a paler sky, their waves slower, their color duller. Whales, confused by the cooling currents, wander farther and farther from their feeding grounds. Birds stop migrating. There is nowhere left warm enough to go. As weeks pass, the cold sharpens. Rivers freeze from their edges inward. The air grows heavy and thin, the winds sluggish. Cities burn fuel endlessly just to hold the frost at bay. Snow begins to fall even in the tropics, and the great landmarks of civilization, the pyramids, the Eiffel Tower, the Golden Gate, are dusted with white. For a time it is beautiful, a world shimmering beneath pale light, silent except for the whisper of drifting snow. But beauty gives way to stillness. Electric grids strain under the demand for heat. Coal, oil, And gas reserves vanish in months. Entire nations migrate toward the equator in desperate search of warmth, only to find the same cold waiting. The temperature drops further, 1 degree at a time, until the average across the planet falls below 50 degrees CA. Engines fail. Water systems freeze. The sound of running rivers and ocean waves, once so constant it went unnoticed, fades completely. Silence begins to take hold. Astronomers point their telescopes at the sun and measure its shrinking disk. It is now barely a fraction of its former size. The sunlight that reaches Earth is not golden, but blue-white, harsh, pale, unwelcoming. Its warmth no longer touches the skin. The nights grow longer, and even when the sun does rise, it never climbs high. It hovers near the horizon, weak and ghostly, before vanishing again. Governments collapse one by one, their power grids useless in the growing cold. Those who can retreat underground, into bunkers, into geothermal stations, into the warmth of the planet's molten heart. For a time, the underground cities thrive. Artificial light replaces the sun. Hydroponic farms glow with electric life. Humanity adapts, as it always does. But above ground, the Earth has begun to change into something unrecognizable. The oceans begin to freeze. At first, thin sheets of ice form across the surface. Then the sheets thicken into slabs, then into continents of ice that stretch for hundreds of kilometers. Only the deep currents, warmed by geothermal vents, remain liquid, for now. The surface is a world of endless snow, windless and still. The clouds are gone. The air holds too little moisture to form them. The once blue sky is black even by day. Then one day, the last day anyone would call a day, the sun sets for the final time. It sinks below the horizon and never rises again. Its light fades into a pale orange glow, then to red, then to nothing. The stars appear brighter than ever, so many that the sky looks alive with them. And in that brilliance, the sun is gone, lost among the stars it once outshone. Earth is now a rogue planet, adrift in the dark. The air above is cold enough to freeze steel. The oceans are sealed beneath ice thicker than mountains. But in the deep places, in the cracks of rock and the glowing veins of magma, warmth still lives. And deep within that warmth, life holds on. Tiny organisms cling to existence near geothermal vents. Their world is dark and pressurized, but it is life all the same. To them, the surface and the sun are myths, ancient legends passed through chemical memory. They live without light, without time, without seasons. Their energy comes not from stars, but from the heart of the planet itself. They are Earth's final witnesses, and they do not know it. Above, the planet continues to drift. The frozen continents shine like glass under the starlight, reflecting the endless dark. Auroras no longer dance, lightning no longer strikes, rain no longer falls. The air is still. The world has become silent, perfectly, peacefully silent. And yet, in that silence, there is a strange serenity. The chaos of life has passed, and the planet rests, just as a living being might after a long journey. It has left the warmth of home, but not the embrace of the universe. It drifts among the stars, asleep but eternal, carrying the memory of sunlight deep within its heart. It is not the end, not truly, because even in endless night, there is still motion. The earth still turns, slowly, patiently, and somewhere inside, its molten core still glows, whispering softly into the cold. I am still here. As the days fade into perpetual night, the transformation of Earth becomes complete. The cold is no longer a sensation. It is a presence, silent, patient, absolute. It seeps through every layer of rock, every molecule of air, every echo of sound. Even light itself begins to feel slower, dimmer, hesitant to move across the frozen plains. The oceans, once the lungs of the planet, are the first to surrender. At the equator, the waves stiffen. Ripples freeze mid-motion, their shapes captured forever like sculptures of glass. At the poles, the ice sheets thicken until they are kilometers deep, pale blue cathedrals of pressure built over centuries of falling snow. The once restless waters, home to a billion forms of life, fall into perfect stillness. No current stirs, no tide rises. The sea sleeps. Under the weight of this frozen world, strange things begin to happen. Air itself becomes heavy, compressed by cold, until oxygen and nitrogen condense into delicate flakes of frost that drift to the ground like powdered light. Snow falls, not from clouds, but from the very atmosphere collapsing under its own weight. The horizon disappears behind a curtain of diamond dust, and the earth glows faintly under the starlight, an orb of white silence drifting through infinity. If you stood on its surface now, wrapped in layers of impossible protection, you would see a sight both haunting and beautiful. The sky is utterly black, filled with sharp, motionless stars. The sun is gone, replaced by a single point of icy fire. Too dim to warm, too far to comfort. Each step would echo in stillness, the sound of your own movement swallowed by frozen air. Even your breath would crystallize before you exhaled it, scattering as glitter into the endless night. Beneath the ice, traces of warmth remain. In the darkest depths of the frozen oceans, near volcanic vents, heat seeps up from the planet's molten heart. Here, water still moves, not freely, but enough to stir. And around that faint warmth, life continues. Microbes feed on sulfur and minerals, glowing faintly with bioluminescence like scattered stars beneath the sea. They do not know the sun is gone. To them, the world has always been dark, and life has always been warmth without light. Far above, mountains crack under the weight of new glaciers. Valleys vanish. Cities are buried beneath hundreds of meters of snow. Skyscrapers stand like black tombstones, their windows filled with frost, their lights extinguished long ago. The wind has stopped. There is no sound of storms, no motion of clouds, only stillness. The earth, once a symphony of movement and color, has become monochrome and motionless. The only glow comes from the stars reflected off the ice, and from the faint warmth of its still living core. Give them all energy. The last breath of the planet pulses quietly in the deep. It is not enough to save the surface, but it keeps the heart from dying completely. Deep underground, remnants of humanity may still survive. Entire civilizations carved, glowing with artificial suns, powered by nuclear fusion. Their air is recycled, their crops grown under LED lights, their clocks still keeping time long after time has lost its meaning. They tell stories of blue skies, of summer winds, of a golden warmth that once touched their ancestors' faces. Children grow up never having seen the sun, yet they draw it from memory passed through words. The fire of the old world still burns, not in the sky, but in their imagination. Above them, the frozen world turns slowly, endlessly. The moon, too, has gone dark, reflecting only the pale starlight. The continents, once green, then brown, then white, are now buried under kilometers of compressed ice. Volcanoes occasionally pierce the surface, sending geysers of steam that freeze before reaching the sky, forming towers of solid mist that catch the faint light of the stars. They shimmer like frozen beacons, reminders that the planet is still alive inside, still dreaming beneath the cold. In the grand silence, even time begins to lose its rhythm. A year means nothing without seasons. A day means nothing without dawn. Only the rotation remains, one final motion, slow and patient. The planet spins in darkness, carrying the memory of its past like a ghost in orbit around nothing. And yet, there is peace here. No storms, no waves, No sound of wind or thunder, only calm. The earth has become what it was always meant to be, a cradle of stillness, a mirror of the universe itself. It is not dead, it is resting, and deep below the frozen crust, its heart still beats, slow, steady, eternal. So when we ask, what would happen if the earth fell out of orbit? The answer is not chaos, not fire, not ruin. It is silence, a slow, infinite quiet that settles across everything like sleep. In the next chapter, we will travel deeper into the layers below the ice, where heat still breathes and life, small and defiant, refuses to fade. There is a moment when life does not end with violence, but with quiet surrender. It is not a sudden extinction, not a flash or collapse, just a slowing, a dimming, a fading of breath that stretches over years until silence takes its place. That is how Earth's biosphere dies, not with fire, but with stillness. When the planet first begins to drift away from the sun, plants fight to adapt. Their green leaves, the living mirrors that once drank in sunlight, begin to pale. Without enough energy, photosynthesis falters. The chlorophyll inside each leaf, the very pigment of life, breaks down, leaving behind brittle shades of brown and gray. Forests, once alive with wind and color, turn ghostly and still. The scent of earth, the whisper of leaves, the hum of insects, all fade into the cold. As photosynthesis ends, the air begins to change. The delicate balance that kept oxygen flowing falters. The great lungs of the earth, the rainforests, the algae in the oceans, fall silent. Carbon dioxide builds in the atmosphere, but there is no warmth left to trap. Instead of a greenhouse, the planet becomes a tomb. The air thins. Each breath becomes heavier, colder, less alive. Animals endure for a time. They huddle, migrate, adapt, driven by instincts older than reason. But as plants die, the chain of life unravels. Herbivores starve first, then carnivores. The oceans, once teeming with movement, fall still beneath the thickening ice. Whales drift through frozen corridors, their calls fading into silence. Fish freeze in the dark. Coral reefs, already ghosts of their former selves, crumble into dust. Even the smallest insects vanish, those tiny architects of life that kept ecosystems in balance. Bees, butterflies, ants, all gone. The hum of the world stops. No wings, no footsteps, no echoes, only the soft sound of snow, a snow that never melts, falling onto an empty earth. And then, only humans remain. For a while, underground cities flicker with artificial light, and reactors hum like false suns. There are farms powered by fusion, biodomes with oxygen generators, and forests recreated in glass chambers. It works for a time, but even in these artificial worlds, the old rhythm of Earth is gone. There are no birdsong mornings, no wind through trees, no rain, only the soft vibration of machines and the heartbeat of those who remember. Scientists continue to study the frozen surface. They send drones into the endless white, collecting samples, measuring temperatures, tracking the last flickers of energy escaping into space. Each report is quieter than the last. The surface is colder now than the dark side of Pluto. The atmosphere is thinned so much that sound itself struggles to travel. Even a shout would vanish a few meters away, absorbed by the ice and the emptiness. Still, the deep earth lives on. Beneath kilometers of rock and frozen ocean, near hydrothermal vents, life persists. Single-celled organisms cluster around black smokers, feeding on sulfur and heat. They are simple, blind, but unyielding. The last echoes of life on a dead planet. Perhaps they will continue for millions of years, long after the last human heart stops beating. And maybe, one day, long after humanity is gone, those microbes will evolve again. They will rise, adapt, and learn to see without light, to think without sound, to remember without memory. They will be the children of darkness, the new life born from an old world. Above them, the silence grows deeper. The frozen forests gleam beneath starlight like glass sculptures. Mountains cast long shadows over plains of snow that have not shifted in centuries. The wind has stopped. Even the air seems to sleep. Earth, once full of voices, now dreams in silence. And in that silence, there is something sacred. Because silence, too, is part of the universe's language. When the stars first formed, there was no sound, only motion, only light. And when worlds end, they return to that same quiet, that same still perfection. The last leaf to fall did not make a sound. It drifted down in slow motion, froze before it touched the ground, and became part of the snow. In its veins was the memory of sunlight, of golden warmth, of summer air, of the laughter of wind. And now, that memory sleeps beneath ice, waiting for an eternity that may never come. The silence of life is not death. It is the pause between breaths, the stillness before something new begins. In the next part of our story, we will descend deeper into the earth, into the warmth that still flickers beneath the frozen crust, and see how the planet's molten heart refuses to die, even when everything else has. When the surface froze and the last true sunrise faded from memory, humanity turned inward, not just into the planet, but into itself. We had always looked to the stars for salvation, to the sun for warmth. But now, in its absence, we were forced to become our own source of light. The first underground cities were built near geothermal vents, where the heat of Earth's molten core still bled faintly through cracks in the crust. Engineers and scientists carved caverns large enough to hold entire nations. They filled them with reactors, air recyclers, and the soft hum of artificial life. In those depths, humanity began again. Above ground, the planet was silent. But below, light bloomed. Not sunlight, but the white glow of fusion lamps and plasma cores. Massive spheres of contained energy floated at the heart of each city, shining with the brilliance of miniature suns. They mimicked the spectrum of real daylight, feeding crops grown in hydroponic towers, warming rivers of recycled water, keeping skin from forgetting what light felt like. People adapted quickly, as humans always do. They lived in a rhythm defined not by sunrise or sunset, but by the pulse of their own creations. Artificial dawns flickered across metal skies, illuminating corridors carved from ancient stone. The sound of machinery replaced birdsong. The hiss of ventilation became the new wind. Children grew up beneath false horizons, learning of the old world from books and projections. Blue skies, oceans, trees that moved with the breeze. To them, these stories sounded like fairy tales. The fusion cores, humanity's new suns, became sacred. They were tended to like living beings, their energy carefully balanced, their light measured in cycles to mimic the old days. Scientists called them Helion systems, descendants of the sun itself, modeled from its nuclear heart. They burned with hydrogen, clean and endless, as long as the reactors were fed. And within their glow, humanity survived. For a time, life flourished underground. Entire cities grew, vast domes beneath the crust, connected by tunnels glowing with bioluminescent moss and lead veins. Trains still ran, carrying people from one colony to another. Music played, laughter echoed. Civilization endured, smaller, quieter, but still alive. Yet even in this safety, there was an ache. People missed the sky. They missed the idea of sunlight on their skin, of clouds drifting, of stars that did not have to be simulated on ceiling screen. Artists began to paint the sun from memory. Children pressed their hands to the warm glass of reactor domes and pretended they could feel it again. It was a comfort and a grief at once, the memory of light that no longer existed above them. And then came the realization, even the artificial suns would not last forever. Fuel, though abundant, was finite. Fusion required containment, stability, constant attention. If in one system failed, an entire city could freeze within hours. So humanity began to prepare again, not for return, but for endurance. They built vaults of light, enormous chambers designed to store energy for centuries. They created vast libraries, preserving human knowledge in crystal memory, powered by deep geothermal cores that would last long after the species itself. And they recorded messages, voices, songs, the laughter of children, the sounds of waves and wind, encoded into light and buried beneath the ice, waiting for someone or something to find them one day. These vaults became our monuments, not of stone, but of memory. A promise that humanity existed, that it had once looked at the stars and dreamed. Above, the earth continued to drift, silent, frozen, untouched. But far below, in those glowing caverns, a few billion hearts still beat. And in their warmth, the spirit of the planet, the will to endure, continued. For centuries, humanity lived this way. Generations were born, lived, and died without ever seeing the sky. They spoke of it like a legend, the great blue above, where the real sun once lived. And though they could not see it, they still believed it was out there, shining somewhere beyond the cold. Because faith in the sun, in life, in warmth, is something gravity can never take away. Centuries have passed. Above the ice, the surface of Earth has become an untouched monument, a silent sculpture of frozen oceans and buried mountains. But far below, in the labyrinth of stone and heat, the last lights of humanity still glow. They are not bright anymore, just enough to keep the dark at bay, enough to remind the survivors that the sun, though lost, still lives on in their machines, in their stories, in their memories. The great underground cities have become ecosystems of their own. Entire civilizations exist within caverns carved from volcanic rock. Artificial rivers run through them, glimmering faintly beneath metallic bridges. Ceilings are lined with holographic panels projecting skies that never change, always a soft golden hue, an echo of what once was. The air is recycled endlessly, purified by filters and the last genetically engineered algae, the only form of photosynthesis left in the world. Humanity has adapted to the rhythm of artificial suns. Every 24 hours, the fusion cores dim slightly, mimicking dusk. Shadows stretch across metal streets, and people pause to watch their own artificial sunsets. They know it isn't real, but in a world without the true sky, it's enough. Children are told stories of clouds and rain, of snow that fell softly and melted into rivers. They listen wide-eyed, as if hearing the myth of another universe. Over generations, people have changed. Their eyes have adjusted to the dim light, their skin pale and smooth, untouched by the radiation of the old sun. Their lungs are smaller, adapted to the thinner, drier air of the caverns. They have become a quieter species, more reflective, less restless. Without the vastness of sky above them, their thoughts turn inward, deeper. Philosophy replaces ambition. Meditation replaces war. Technology still exists, but it no longer dominates. There is no race for progress, no hunger for conquest. Humanity's only purpose now is to endure, to keep the lights burning, the crops growing, the stories alive. Libraries are tended like temples, their books and data cores preserved with the care once given to cathedral. Each city has its own keeper of the light, the engineer responsible for maintaining the fusion core that powers their world. To lose a light is to lose a sun, and every failure means another community gone forever. Sometimes, when a reactor fades or a system collapses, the inhabitants of a city will gather together and watch their artificial sun dim for the last time. They hold hands, sing songs of the real dawn, and whisper gratitude for the warmth that kept them alive. Then, as the light fades, they step into the cold, joining the frozen stillness above, where even death feels peaceful. But most endure. Somehow, despite the odds, the human race continues. Farmers grow crops under ultraviolet lamps, scientists still record data, and artists paint the world they've never seen. A world of blue skies and green forests, recreated from ancient descriptions. Children learn that they are made of starlight, the atoms in their blood forged in suns that burned long before the earth froze. And that one day, when this world is gone, those atoms will drift on, perhaps to become part of something new. There is no night or day anymore, only cycles of light and dark controlled by the pulse of the reactors. The people sleep when the lights dim, work when they brighten, and dream when all else is quiet. Dreams have become the last escape, the only place where skies still exist. Psychologists study them carefully, finding that almost every dream shares the same image: a vast horizon, golden light, and warmth on the skin. It is as if humanity's collective memory refuses to forget the sun. Outside, Earth drifts silently through the dark between stars. Its rotation slows with time. The magnetic field weakens, but the molten core still glows faintly. It is that glow, that last inner fire, that keeps the underground alive. The heat of the planet's heart is now the only thing standing between survival and eternal stillness. Once every generation, explorers venture to the surface through reinforced tunnels. They wear suits that can withstand the cold of space itself. They bring back samples, shards of ancient cities, frozen seas, air trapped in crystal ice. They walk across what was once the ocean floor, now a landscape of glass and frost. Above them, the stars blaze brighter than ever, and somewhere, far away, the sun glows faintly as one of them. It is no longer a star of warmth, but of memory. When the explorers return, they speak softly, reverently. They tell the children that the earth above is sleeping, that one day, perhaps, it will wake again. That maybe, in some distant future, the planet will drift near another star, and light will return. And even if no one is there to see it, that light will fall upon the frozen world, and it will shine once more. They end their tales with the same words, passed down for centuries. We are the children of light, and the sun still lives in us. Because even in the coldest dark, the human heart remembers warmth. Earth drifts now, untethered, no longer bound to a star. It moves through the void like a forgotten thought, slow but unstoppable, a ghost among galaxies. It doesn't spin through space with the elegance of orbit anymore. It wanders, a lonely traveler in an ocean without shore. The sun is gone, a pale memory lost behind distance and time. From the frozen surface, it would now be impossible to tell where it lies. The stars, countless and eternal, have taken its place. They shimmer with a clarity unseen when Earth still had an atmosphere. The sky, if one could still call it that, is sharp, infinite, unfiltered. The Milky Way stretches like a river of light above the icy deserts, reflecting faintly on the frozen oceans below. Earth has become what scientists once called a rogue planet, a world without a home star. There are billions of them drifting through our galaxy, cold and unseen, each carrying the remains of a story that ended long ago. Now, Earth is one of them, the first to be known, the last to remember warmth. In the emptiness between stars, temperatures fall close to absolute zero. Every molecule on the surface is frozen in place. Even time seems to move differently here. Slower, quieter. The Earth's motion through space is steady, unending, guided only by inertia, untouched by any pull strong enough to alter its course. If you could stand upon this frozen world now, it would be like standing on the edge of eternity. The silence would be absolute. No sound, no air, no movement. Above you, the universe would sprawl in impossible beauty. Nebulae would bloom like distant flowers. Galaxies would glow faintly in pastel spirals, and meteors would trace silver lines across the black. The cosmos would no longer be hidden by the veil of atmosphere. Every light that ever was could be seen. Billions of suns, unreachable and eternal. The Earth, however, does not see. It simply moves. Its orbit is no longer circular, no longer meaningful. It follows a straight line into infinity, a frozen relic carried by its own ancient momentum. The moon still follows, locked forever by gravity's embrace. Together they drift, two companions, pale and silent, orbiting each other like dancers long after the music has stopped. Far beneath the surface, the molten core continues to beat faintly. That inner fire, though weakened, still releases warmth through cracks in the crust. It's a reminder that motion, and therefore life, has not completely ended. There are still volcanic vents, glowing red beneath miles of ice, deep rivers of magma, chambers of trapped gas that rumble softly in the dark. The heart of the planet still whispers, "I remember the sun." Sometimes, the wandering Earth passes near the edge of distant systems, stars whose gravity reaches out like a gentle tide. From the surface, if anyone could still look up, they would see those stars grow brighter for a short while. The frozen horizon would gleam faintly, and shadows would return, fragile, fleeting. For a few days or weeks, the ice would glisten with reflected light, as if the planet were dreaming of sunlight again. But the pull never lasts. The path continues onward. Each time, the borrowed glow fades, and darkness reclaims everything. Inside the underground cities, though still alive, mark these moments with awe. They call them the passing lights. They gather to watch faint readings from the surface sensors. Spikes of warmth, brief flickers of radiation. They listen to the hum of the Earth as it responds to the gravitational tides of passing stars. It's like hearing a heartbeat echo in sleep. For a short while, hope returns. Then the data falls silent again, and they know the journey continues. In time, even these moments grow rarer. The galaxy is vast, but mostly empty. Years stretch into centuries, centuries into millennia. Civilizations rise and fade beneath the ground. Entire languages born and forgotten while the planet drifts through the void. Humanity becomes myth within its own halls, and eventually silence claims even the caverns. But the Earth does not stop. It cannot. Motion is the one gift the universe never takes back. Even in darkness, even in emptiness, the planet moves. A cold ember carried on the breath of creation. Perhaps it will travel for 1 billion years. Perhaps it will cross the boundaries of galaxies, slipping through cosmic dust and the faint magnetic trails of forgotten suns. And maybe, one day, it will pass close enough to another star to be caught again. Gravity, that patient sculptor of destiny, might reach out and take hold, pulling the Earth into a new orbit, a new dawn. If that day comes, the ice will begin to melt, the oceans will awaken, the air will rise, and maybe, impossibly, life will begin again. A planet reborn, carrying within it the fossilized dreams of its ancestors. A second chance, written not in fire, but in endurance. Until then, Earth continues to drift, asleep but not dead. A cradle-turned coffin turned seed, floating through the dark, waiting for a new light to find it. And as it travels, silent and unknowing, the stars continue their slow dance around the galaxy. Endless, indifferent, but beautiful. The story of Earth is not over. It is simply between chapters. The Earth's long journey through the dark is not completely lonely. Though the galaxy is vast and empty, time, endless, patient time, brings the wandering planet close to other stars. These meetings are rare, separated by millions of years. But when they happen, they are moments of breathtaking beauty, brief sparks in eternity. One day, or perhaps 1 million years from now, the Earth drifts close enough to feel the pull of a distant sun. The black sky begins to change. At first, it's nothing more than a shimmer on the horizon, a faint gleam reflected on the frozen ice. But slowly, the light grows. The world that has slept for ages begins to glow again. Shadows form where there had been none. The silence breaks, not with sound, but with radiance. The star is smaller than our old sun, a red dwarf, dim and ancient. But to the frozen Earth, it feels like rebirth. Its light stretches across the glaciers, painting them crimson and gold. The air closest to the surface warms by a few precious degrees. Thin layers of ice sublimate into mist, creating delicate clouds that drift for the first time in thousands of centuries. The world shivers, as though it remembers how to breathe. If anyone were alive to see it, it would be the most beautiful dawn imaginable. A single star hanging low in the sky, its reflection turning the ice fields into oceans of fire. For a brief time, maybe days, maybe years, the frozen planet would wear the illusion of life again. The wind would stir, the air would move, and the light, faint but real, would awaken the surface from its long sleep. But beauty in space is always fleeting. The star's gravity pulls, but not enough to capture. The Earth passes by, grazing the edge of its warmth, tracing a curved path through its faint halo of light. The ice glows, melts slightly, refreezes, a frozen heartbeat, and then fades back to stillness. The warmth is gone as quickly as it came. The Earth continues on its path, carrying with it the ghost of light, the memory of another sun. Astronomers once predicted this possibility, that rogue planets, wandering the void, might occasionally pass near stars and flare to life for short periods before vanishing again into the dark. They called these worlds sleeping embers, planets that remember the light even after losing it. And now, Earth has become one of them, a sleeping ember adrift in infinity. Over the next millions of years, it will pass by other stars too. Some brighter, some colder, some surrounded by entire systems of planets. Once, it may even drift close enough to catch a glimpse of an inhabited world, perhaps one that looks upon the stars and wonders if there are others out there. If they could see our world, pale, frozen, ghostly, perhaps they would make the same wish we once did, that we are not alone. Each encounter leaves a trace, a faint glow of warmth in the planet's crust, a change in trajectory, a ripple in its endless drift. Over time, these small nudges accumulate, altering its path, guiding it through the interstellar sea, like a leaf in a slow cosmic current. The galaxy's gravity is subtle but eternal, shaping even the wanderers into its pattern. And so, the Earth continues, meeting stars, touching light, saying farewell. Each encounter is both a reminder and a promise that even in darkness, the universe does not forget. Every world, every atom, every frozen sea is part of a pattern too vast to vanish. When the last of these encounters fades, when even distant starlight grows faint again, Earth will drift into the great dark between galaxies, the deep, silent void where no stars burn and no light travels far. There, it will rest again, cold, quiet, but not gone, because even in its silence, Earth carries the memory of warmth, a memory carved into its very atoms, written in its molten heart, whispered through every orbit it once took. The universe has no graves, only transformations. And a world that once lived will never truly be lost. The next time Earth passes a star, perhaps it will come close enough, just close enough to be caught. Gravity will take hold, and for the first time in billions of years, the planet will have a home again. There will be warmth and light and maybe a new beginning. But until then, the Earth drifts on, a silent traveler among endless suns, carrying within it all the stories of what once was. There comes a moment, after the warmth of passing stars fades and the light dissolves into memory, when the Earth exhales for the last time. Its breath, the atmosphere, begins to drift away. Not suddenly, not violently, but slowly, gently, like mist unraveling in the dark. The atmosphere has thinned for centuries. Without the sun's constant energy, there is nothing to replenish the heat that keeps gases close. Each molecule, once held tight by gravity, begins to escape. First the lightest, hydrogen and helium, then the heavier, life-giving ones, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. They rise, expand, and are carried off into the endless night, never to return. The planet's final breath is a whisper, a faint sigh of fading air, dispersing into the void. The sound of wind ceases completely. There are no storms, no waves, no echoes. Even silence itself seems to deepen, as if the world is not merely quiet, but mute. The surface becomes a vacuum, as still and deadly as the space that surrounds it. Pressure drops to nothing, and the delicate balance that once protected life from the cold of the universe collapses. Every trace of warmth that remained now escapes freely into infinity. If you could stand on the planet during this time, you would not hear it happening. There would be no sound, just the faint shimmer of air freezing and dispersing into space. The sky would no longer exist. Without air to scatter light, there would be no blue, no clouds, no horizon. Only blackness, infinite and pure, filled with the sharp light of distant suns. The stars would no longer twinkle. They would burn steady and unwavering, crystal clear, each one a diamond pinned against eternity. The once living atmosphere, now frozen and gone, leaves behind a new kind of landscape. The snow and ice remain, but no longer as water. They are crystalline, dry, brittle as glass. Each flake is a shard of the air that once wrapped this planet in warmth and breath. You could walk across the frozen plains and hear only the faint crunch of your own steps, amplified through the bones of the planet itself. The Earth has become solid silence. The remnants of oxygen and nitrogen form delicate halos around the planet, faint auroras glowing in infrared, invisible to the eye, but still beautiful. They are the planet's last lights, like the dim embers of a once roaring fire. Then even these fade. What remains is a naked world, stripped of sky, stripped of breath, a sculpture carved in ice and stone, glowing faintly in the reflection of distant starlight. Deep below the surface, humanity's descendants, if any still live, would feel the change as pressure drops subtly in the caverns. Their sensors would show the readings. Atmospheric density, 0. Oxygen concentration, none. They would know what it means. The planet they once called home is no longer a place where air exists. Earth has joined the ranks of the airless worlds, a silent moon among the stars. Yet, even this ending carries grace. The loss of atmosphere means no decay, no corrosion, no erosion. The planet's surface, preserved in cold perfection, becomes eternal. Cities, mountains, oceans, all remain exactly as they were in their final moment, frozen in time, untouched for billions of years. The Earth, once alive, becomes its own monument. Somewhere in the vast silence, fragments of that vanished air drift outward, carried by invisible cosmic winds. They scatter through the galaxy, mixing with dust and gas, the raw ingredients of new stars and planets. Perhaps one day, far away, they will become part of another atmosphere, another sky, another world where life breathes again. The atoms that once filled our lungs will fill others. The air that once carried our laughter will move once more through leaves and waves and hearts, reborn in another form. Because nothing in the universe truly dies. It only changes shape. The atmosphere leaves Earth, but it does not vanish. It becomes part of something new, a continuation written in invisible particles, drifting forever. And so, the Earth remains below, silent and perfect. No air, no wind, no sound, only stillness. Its mountains glisten beneath starlight, its oceans sleep under glass, and its once blue skies are gone, replaced by the raw clarity of the cosmos. It is no longer a world of motion, but of memory. Every frozen peak and valley whispers a story of warmth, of wind, of life that once was. And if the stars could listen, they would hear it. The echo of a planet's final breath, carried endlessly through the universe. The oceans were the Earth's heart, vast, restless, alive. They carried the pulse of the tides, the rhythm of the moon, the reflection of every sunrise. But now, they are still, not with peace, but with permanence. Every wave, every current, every whisper of salt and wind has been turned to glass. The oceans no longer move. They remember. The surface is a mirror, endless and cold. From space, the planet gleams like a jewel, smooth, radiant, and lifeless. The deep blue of water has vanished, replaced by the pale shimmer of frozen hydrogen and oxygen locked together forever. Even sunlight, if it were to return, would only scatter faintly across the frost, never melting, never absorbed. Beneath that frozen crust, a world sleeps. The last traces of warmth from the molten core flow upward through cracks, creating pockets of liquid water beneath miles of ice. They are oceans within oceans, invisible, secret, alive in their own quiet way. It is there, in the darkness beneath the frozen sea, that the last remnants of life endure. Tiny organisms drift through those black waters, feeding on minerals that seep from volcanic vents. They have no eyes, no need for light. They sense only warmth and the faint chemical traces of existence. They multiply slowly, moving in patterns as old as the planet itself. They are the children of time, untouched by extinction, untouched by the loss of the sky. Above them, frozen continents stretch unbroken across what was once the sea. The Mariana Trench lies sealed beneath kilometers of solid ice. Coral reefs, long dead, stand petrified, their intricate skeletons preserved like lace beneath transparent layers. Ships that once crossed the oceans now rest eternally in crystal tombs, their masts trapped mid-motion, their sails frozen like wings of stone. Every ripple, every wave, every storm that ever was is now still. If you could walk there, across the glass plains that were once oceans, your footsteps would echo faintly, hollow and eternal. You would see shapes beneath your feet, the outlines of whales, great shadows frozen mid-swim, the remains of reefs, their colors faded but forms untouched, the remnants of civilization, ports, cities, towers, encased in ice, unchanging, unbroken. The world has not been erased, it has been paused. Every memory of motion is preserved, and yet, in this frozen stillness, beauty remains. The surface glitters with the light of distant stars, reflecting constellations that have changed little in billions of years. Where the moon once pulled the tides, now its shadow passes quietly over glass. There are no tides anymore, no rising or falling seas. Only a single moment stretched across eternity. Sometimes, fragments of light from passing stars reach the planet, bending through the ice and scattering deep below the surface. For a few seconds, Those rays pierce the black waters and illuminate the undersea caverns where life still moves. The microorganisms shimmer faintly, as if in recognition, as if remembering the warmth that once was. Then the light fades, and the dark returns, patient and infinite. The frozen oceans are the planet's greatest monument, a record of every age that came before. Each layer of ice tells a story. The uppermost remembers the last days of sunlight. Beneath it lies the era of storm and flood. Deeper still are the memories of forests, of life's first beginnings, of the time when the seas were full of sound and movement. These layers are not just history, they are memory, written in cold and pressure. A library of existence, preserved in silence. Far beneath, the heat from the planet's core still stirs the water slowly, keeping the smallest ecosystems alive. It is the last breath of a living world, deep, hidden, persistent. And though no one is there to see it, it is enough. The Earth is not entirely dead. It dreams beneath its frozen skin. If a future civilization, light years away, were to find this world and study its ice, they would see everything. They would find air bubbles trapped in layers of frost, carrying the exact mixture of gases humans once breathed. They would see traces of life, organic patterns, fragments of cells, the outline of motion itself, caught and preserved in ice like music, frozen mid-note. They would know that this world once lived, once loved, once looked toward the stars and wondered. And maybe they would melt a small piece of it, just enough to let a drop of ancient ocean fall onto their hands. And in that drop, that single molecule of water, they would touch a piece of everything that ever was. The rain, the rivers, the tears of humankind. The oceans are gone, but they have not disappeared. They have only changed their form, trading motion for eternity. They sleep now, calm, complete, untouched, dreaming of the day when light might touch them again. And so the Earth drifts onward. A world of frozen memory. No waves, no wind, only reflections of what once was, perfectly still beneath a billion stars. Deep below the frozen skin of the planet, where sunlight has never reached, the Earth's heart still glows. It beats faintly, but steadily, the last ember of a once living world. Long after the atmosphere has vanished, after the oceans have turned to crystal and the stars have become the only source of light, the planet's molten core remains alive. It is not the same roaring furnace it once was. Time has cooled it, distance has dimmed it, yet its flame endures, buried beneath thousands of kilometers of silence. The iron heart of the Earth still spins, still generates a weak magnetic field that hums like a ghost through the ice. It is a heartbeat, slow and patient, refusing to stop. This heat moves outward, traveling through stone and ancient fault lines, pushing against the weight of the frozen world above. Where it reaches the deep oceans trapped beneath the ice, it creates pockets of warmth, oases of liquid water, glowing faintly with geothermal light. And within those hidden seas, life endures. Simple, silent, unseen. Tiny organisms cling to the walls of these black caverns. They feed on the minerals rising from the planet's core. Sulfur, iron, trace gases. Their movements are slow, but their existence is relentless. Each one is a whisper of the past, a fragment of the life that once covered the Earth's surface. In their DNA, the memory of sunlight still lingers, even if they no longer understand what light is. If you could descend into these depths, you would see a world untouched by death. Columns of steam rise from vents glowing red-orange, casting soft halos through the darkness. The water around them swirls gently, shimmering with microscopic life that glows in pale blues and greens. The ice above bends under pressure, creaking softly like a ceiling of crystal. And beneath it all, the Earth breathes, a slow, endless exhalation of heat and life. It is strange to think that while the surface sleeps in absolute stillness, this hidden world still moves. The same energy that once drove volcanoes, powered storms, and shifted continents now sustains a secret, quiet ecosystem. Here in the dark, time has lost its meaning. Generations of life rise and fall in silence, never seeing the stars, never knowing the sky. They're the true heirs of Earth, creatures of stone and heat, shaped not by sunlight, but by endurance. The molten outer core, made of iron and nickel, continues to churn slowly around the solid inner heart. That motion generates faint electric currents, the dying echo of the magnetic field that once shielded life from cosmic radiation. Now, that field serves no purpose. There is nothing left to protect, and yet it persists, as if the planet itself refuses to forget what it once did. Scientists once calculated that even if the sun vanished, the Earth's core would remain hot for billions of years. That heat, born from the radioactive decay of elements deep within the mantle, would fade only when the planet itself was ready to die. But that time has not yet come. Even now, in eternal darkness, the world glows from within. It is a comforting thought that warmth survives where light cannot, that deep within the bones of the earth, a flame continues to burn, unseen but unfaltering. It is the same flame that once sparked volcanoes, forged mountains, and gave birth to life. It is persistence made real, proof that even when everything else fades, the essence of creation remains. In these depths, the air vibrates faintly with the low hum of molten movement. It sounds almost like a voice, deep and eternal, murmuring through the rock. If you listened long enough, you might think the earth was speaking, not in words, but in memory. It would say, "I am not gone. I am only resting." And perhaps that is true. Perhaps somewhere in this deep heat, something more than bacteria has evolved. Something new, something patient, something waiting. Maybe, over countless ages, these creatures will rise toward the frozen crust, adapting to colder layers, building new forms of resilience. Perhaps, in the far future, they will inherit the surface when the stars shift again, and light finds this world once more. The Earth's story, then, is not one of death, but of transformation. The planet has shed its oceans, its skies, its light, but not its fire. That fire, small and defiant, is the promise of what could still be. The surface may be silent, the seas frozen, the atmosphere gone, but beneath it all, the earth still burns. It burns slowly, quietly, like a candle deep in a cavern, refusing to go out. A symbol of what life is, not constant brightness, but constant endurance. And as the planet drifts through the eternal night, that ember glows unseen, carrying with it the story of everything that ever lived. The last light of Earth is not in the sky. It is within, deep underground, beneath the unbroken ice and stone. The last voices of humanity whisper through static. They do not shout anymore. There is no one to hear. The great communication networks that once wrapped the planet like veins of light have fallen silent. Satellites long frozen, antennas buried beneath glaciers, cables fractured and lifeless. And yet, somewhere in the warmth of a surviving city, a signal still hums. It is faint, a steady pulse of radio waves, rising and falling like a heartbeat. Every few minutes it sends the same message. A fragment of music, a recording of the ocean, a human voice speaking softly into eternity. The message repeats endlessly, broadcast into the void. Not for rescue, not for response, but for remembrance. To whoever may hear this, we were here. That voice belongs to a woman named Sarah, one of the last radio engineers. She doesn't expect anyone to answer. There are no other stations, no networks, no replies. Still, she sends her message each day. The transmitter hums with warmth, powered by a fading reactor deep in the stone. Her console glows faintly blue, one of the last sources of light on a dying planet. Above her, kilometers of ice press down with the weight of ages. The Earth's magnetic field, once strong enough to carry messages through space, has weakened to a whisper. The signal she sends barely escapes the atmosphere, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that it exists, that something still speaks for the planet. She keeps recordings on the loop. The sound of rain, the laughter of children, waves breaking on a shore that no longer exists, wind through trees, and at the end of every transmission, her voice, calm, slow, gentle. This is Earth. We are still here. We remember the sun. For decades, the signal continues, even after Sarah is gone. Machines take over the broadcast automatically, repeating her message as long as power remains. The batteries fade, recharge from geothermal heat, and fade again. Eventually, even the computers begin to fail. Their memory chips degrade, their code fragments, their voices distort. But the signal, imperfect, broken, scattered, keeps moving through the cosmos, traveling at the speed of light into the endless dark. Thousands of years later, it will still be moving, a faint rhythm of sound and static drifting through interstellar space. Perhaps one day, it will pass a distant world. Perhaps someone will hear it, not as words, but as a pattern, an echo, a pulse that feels strangely alive. And they will wonder who sent it. They will wonder what happened to the world that spoke with such calm sadness into the dark. Down below, the last humans eventually stop transmitting. The cities, once bright with artificial suns, grow dim. Fusion cores weaken, reactors die. The underground halls, once filled with the hum of life, fall silent. Machines flicker and fade. The warmth of the geothermal vents becomes the only heartbeat left. But even as the last light goes out, the signals continue their journey. They are pure motion now, waves of energy spreading outward forever. They will travel farther than any human ever dreamed, farther than any spacecraft ever flew, through nebulae, past dying stars, across the boundaries of galaxies. They will carry the echo of Earth, the pulse of a species that looked into the dark and spoke softly, refusing to disappear without saying goodbye. And somewhere, billions of light years away, when the universe has changed beyond recognition, those signals will still exist, faint, stretched by time, reduced to whispers, but still there. Not gone, just quieter. If the cosmos ever listens, it will hear the last message of a small blue planet. Not a cry, not a plea, but a lullaby. Now there is only motion, endless, unbroken, silent motion. The Earth no longer belongs to a system, to a star, or even to a sky. It is free in the most haunting sense of the word, unbound, unanchored, unseen. It drifts through the void like an ancient thought that refuses to fade, a dream untethered from its dreamer. From far away, the planet would look serene, a faint, glimmering sphere wrapped in sheets of frozen light, moving with absolute stillness through a sea of stars. No sound, no warmth, no weather, only reflection. The once blue oceans, now turned to silver-white ice, mirror the faint glow of distant galaxies. The continents, buried beneath kilometers of frost, are indistinguishable from the frozen seas. From the darkness, Earth looks perfect, beautiful, untouched, eternal. But perfection here means stillness. It means the absence of change, the quiet surrender of time itself. Every trace of motion on the surface has long since stopped. The winds, the tides, the rain, all gone. Even the ice no longer shifts or cracks. The temperature has fallen so low that molecules barely move, locked in place, frozen beyond measure. The planet is a sculpture now, carved by time and preserved by nothingness. And yet, it moves. It moves through the galaxy, slowly, endlessly. Its path is not straight. It bends subtly under the influence of stars and cosmic currents, drifting like a feather in an invisible tide. Each passing century carries it farther from the sun's memory, deeper into the interstellar night. It no longer belongs to the Milky Way's bright arms, but to the cold outskirts where light itself is rare. The moon still follows. Locked forever by gravity, it circles faithfully, a companion in darkness. Its orbit has tightened over millennia, the distance shrinking until the two bodies seem like one. A twin system of frozen silence. Together they drift, two lonely echoes of a story that ended long ago. Sometimes, starlight catches them, faint beams from faraway suns that graze their surfaces and scatter across the ice. For a moment they shimmer, like two pearls floating in an endless ocean. Then the light passes, and the dark returns. Deep inside, the molten core has cooled further. The once bright rivers of magma are slowing, congealing into solid rock. The heartbeat of the planet is faint now, barely measurable, one slow pulse every 1,000 years. But still, it beats. The fire that began 4.5 billion years ago has not gone out completely. Even here, in the void, the planet's heart remembers what it means to be alive. The magnetic field, though almost gone, occasionally ripples faintly, creating invisible auroras that flicker for moments at the poles, lights without an audience, a final dance of color across an empty sky. Each flicker is like a sigh, a reminder that nothing ever truly stops. It only slows, softens, transforms. As the Earth continues its journey, it passes through invisible clouds of dust, remnants of stars, long dead. The particles settle gently across its frozen surface, coating the ice in a thin layer of cosmic ash. In that dust are atoms of carbon, oxygen, iron, the same elements that once made up the living world. The universe is returning itself to the planet, piece by piece, as if to keep it company. Every so often, meteors strike the surface, silent explosions that leave no sound. Their craters freeze instantly, preserved forever. Each one is a signature from the cosmos, a message written in stone: you are not forgotten. The Earth is no longer a world of life, but it has become something else, a vessel of memory. Every frozen ocean holds the record of motion. Every crystal of ice contains the story of sunlight. Even the rocks whisper of forests, rivers, and voices that once echoed across their surface. The planet has become a time capsule of existence, carrying within it the memory of what it means to live. If the Earth could dream, it would dream of movement, of clouds, of waves, of the soft golden warmth that once filled its skies. It would dream of the sound of rain, of the scent of the sea, of the laughter of life. And in those dreams, it would still be turning, still be alive. But the Earth does not dream. It simply drifts, unfeeling, unchanging, yet somehow not lost. Because to drift is still to move, and to move is still to exist. Somewhere in the endless dark, there are other wanderers, other rogue worlds, drifting as Earth does. Perhaps one day, their paths will cross. Two silent planets, meeting briefly in the void, exchanging a gravitational greeting before continuing on their way. A cosmic nod between travelers who share the same fate. Until then, the Earth floats on, alone but not forgotten, silent but not gone, cold but still carrying the warmth of what once was. A planet without a home, but not without a purpose. To keep moving, to keep remembering, to keep being, even when everything else has stopped. The universe is silent, but silence is not the absence of meaning. It is the space where meaning breathes, slowly, infinitely, patiently. And now, as Earth drifts endlessly through that silence, It has become part of that breath. The planet no longer orbits, no longer spins with purpose, yet its existence still matters. Not to anyone, not to anything, but to the universe itself. Because existence, even quiet existence, is a kind of defiance, a refusal to fade. The Earth, frozen and alone, has become a reflection of everything the cosmos truly is. Cold, vast, and impossibly beautiful. In the early universe, stars were born in clouds of dust and gravity. They flared, they burned, they died, and from their ashes came worlds. From those worlds came oceans, and from those oceans came thought. Thought that looked back upon the stars and asked why. That question, whispered across millennia, was Earth's greatest creation. Not its mountains, not its cities, not even its life, but its curiosity. The Earth was the first place, as far as we know, where the universe became aware of itself. Now that awareness sleeps, but the traces remain. The radio waves humanity sends still travel outward, touching stars that will never know their source. The atoms of the people who once walked its lands are now frozen in the planet's crust, preserved perfectly, unchanging. And the light that once reflected from Earth, every sunrise, every aurora, every candle, continues to move through the cosmos. It will keep traveling forever, carrying the planet's story in photons that will never die. Somewhere, billions of light years away, that light might one day touch another world. It might reach the eyes of beings who have never known Earth but will see, faintly, the echo of its glow. They might record it, study it, or simply marvel at it. A pale blue reflection flickering at the edge of their perception. And though they will never know its name, they will be witnessing the ghost of our world, still shining across eternity. In that way, the Earth is not gone. It has merely become part of the universe's memory, a page in the endless book of time. Everything that ever lived, every sound ever made, every heartbeat that ever echoed across its fields, all of it has been written into the very atoms that now drift in cold silence. Matter remembers. Energy remembers. The universe remembers. Sometimes we imagine meaning as something that requires purpose, something alive, something aware. But perhaps meaning is simpler than that. Perhaps it exists simply because existence itself is miraculous. Perhaps every frozen world, every dying star, every drifting atom is a form of remembrance. The universe's way of saying, I was here. And if that's true, then Earth has achieved something profound. It has become the quiet embodiment of endurance. It is the symbol of all things that live, die, and persist beyond their own endings. It is what happens when movement stops, but significance continues. If you could stand somewhere in the vastness of space and look upon it now, you might see your own reflection. Not in the ice, but in its story. In the journey of something that was born, that lived, that loved, that learned, and that, even in its stillness, refuses to be forgotten. You would see a mirror of yourself, of everything that exists, because you too are made of the same matter that built this drifting planet. You are stardust, rearranged into thought, feeling, and wonder. You carry within you the same iron that beats in Earth's core, the same oxygen that once filled its skies, the same carbon that formed its forests. When you breathe what was once mountains, oceans, and sunlight. When you sleep, you return, for a while, to the same stillness that now holds the planet in its eternal drift. In the end, the Earth is not separate from you. It is you, and you are it, both born of the same universe, both destined to return to it. The drifting of the planet, the beating of your heart, they are the same story told at different scales. So when you think of the Earth lost in darkness, do not mourn. It has not fallen. It has only changed form, from a home to a memory, from warmth to wisdom. Its stillness is not an ending. It is a reflection of everything the universe ever was: energy, transformation, and peace. The Earth's motion through the void is not pointless. It is poetry written in gravity, an echo of creation carried on forever. And though no one remains to see it, the universe watches, not with eyes, but with being. In that infinite awareness, there is understanding. In that understanding, there is beauty. And in that beauty, the drifting earth finds its final meaning. Not in motion, not in light, but in presence. Time has always been the quiet current carrying everything forward. The unseen river beneath every heartbeat, every orbit, every rise and fall. But even rivers can freeze. Even motion, if given enough eternity, can slow until it forgets itself. And in the farthest reaches of the cosmos, time begins to lose its meaning. It doesn't stop all at once. It fades gradually, like the dying echo of a sound that was once loud enough to shape worlds. The galaxies still turn, but slower. The stars still burn, but dimmer. The universe still expands, but the expansion itself becomes so vast that motion no longer feels like motion at all. Everywhere, things grow farther apart, colder, quieter. Earth drifts through that silence, a frozen particle in an endless ocean of nothing. It has been billions of years since it last passed near a star. The galaxy that once held it has thinned, its arms stretched and broken by the universe's relentless expansion. The Milky Way, the home of humanity, is now only a faint whisper of scattered light. Space itself stretches so far that the light from distant stars can no longer reach this place. The sky is no longer full of stars. It is black, perfectly, absolutely black. At these scales, even time ceases to flow as we understand it. Seconds stretch into hours, hours into centuries, centuries into infinities. The cold slows the vibration of atoms until they nearly stop moving. Change itself becomes rare. Everything that remains is simply being. No becoming, no ending, just existing, endlessly still. The earth, long past its days of fire and ice, has cooled completely. Its core, once molten and alive, has crystallized into a perfect sphere of iron and nickel. Solid, silent, eternal. The planet's interior no longer radiates warmth, no longer beats with motion. It rests in perfect equilibrium, its temperature nearly matching that of the space around it. Near absolute zero. The last pulse of heat, the final breath of the world, has drifted away. If there were still a way to measure time, this moment might be called the universe's twilight. All the great forces that once drove creation, gravity, fusion, decay, have quieted. Black holes, once the devourers of galaxies, have evaporated into faint whispers of radiation. Stars have long since burned out, their ashes scattered like dust across infinite distance. The universe, once loud and full of light, now hums at a pitch too low for even the memory of sound to hear. And yet, something of time remains, not as motion, but as presence. The universe is not nothing, it is everything, condensed into stillness. Time no longer measures change, it measures being. And in that being, there is peace. The earth floats through this frozen eternity, unseeing, unfeeling, but perfect. Its surface reflects what little radiation remains, faintly glowing in the far infrared. A whisper of warmth in a sea of dark. There are no shadows, because there is no light. There are no directions because space has stretched beyond definition. The planet is everywhere and nowhere. A single, quiet idea, suspended in the last dream of the cosmos. This is what physicists once called heat death, the final equilibrium, when all energy is evenly distributed and nothing more can happen. But to think of it as death is to miss its beauty. It is not destruction, it is completion. Every atom has found rest. Every particle has stopped its journey. The universe is still, not because it has ended, but because it has finally arrived where it was always going. If consciousness could exist here, if some remnant of awareness could perceive this final calm, it would not see emptiness. It would see serenity. It would understand that motion and stillness are not opposites, but stages of the same dance. That everything which burns must one day rest. That the end of change is not the end of meaning, but its fulfillment. In this frozen now, the Earth's story is complete. It no longer spins. It no longer falls. It no longer drifts. It simply is, the sum of everything that ever happened to it. Every storm, every sunrise, every heartbeat exists here in this infinite moment. Time has not vanished. It has become whole. The universe does not mourn its stillness. It exhales. And in that breathless quiet, it holds everything. Every past, every future, every dream that ever flickered into existence. All of it condensed into peace. And if there were a voice left to speak, it might whisper, "Be still, you have reached eternity." The light that once filled the universe has not yet vanished, not entirely. It lingers, stretched thin across eternity. Its colors faded into whispers. Every photon ever released by a star, a supernova, a planet, or a human hand continues to travel endlessly, forever chasing horizons that no longer exist. These are the final embers of creation, faint, ancient, eternal. But even light cannot outrun the universe's expansion forever. As space grows, it pulls on every photon, stretching their wavelengths until they lose their strength. The bright glow of galaxies becomes a faint red shimmer. Then that shimmer turns to infrared, then to radio, and finally to something beyond perception. A faint hum in the cosmic dark. The last light fades not with a flash, but with a sigh. For eons, that radiation continues to move through the void, soft, invisible, endless. It is the heartbeat of the cosmos, slowing with each passing trillion years. Eventually, even that heartbeat falters. The universe cools further, its background temperature dropping ever closer to absolute zero. The last light becomes too weak to warm even a single atom. Energy no longer flows. All gradients are gone. The cosmos is in perfect balance, still, silent, whole. Somewhere within this endless night, the Earth remains. Its surface no longer reflects or absorbs, it only endures. But though its ice and rock are frozen beyond measure, they are bathed, however faintly, in this dying light. Every photon that touches it is a relic, a messenger from a time when the universe was young and filled with fire. The planet glows faintly under that invisible illumination, as if the cosmos itself refuses to let go. If you could somehow see this light, not with eyes, but with awareness, it would look like a soft ocean of colorless waves washing gently across infinity. No direction, no speed, no source. Just the faint murmur of energy remembering what it once was. Each wave would carry within it the memory of something greater. The collapse of stars, the warmth of worlds, the laughter of life. All of it encoded in a spectrum now stretched beyond recognition. In this era, there are no shadows, no sunrise, no nightfall. The concepts have dissolved. There is only one eternal now, one endless stillness. Time has stretched so far that even change feels frozen. And yet, light, even dying light, continues to move. It does not need a destination. Its motion is its meaning. The universe, once a grand explosion of brilliance, now resembles a whisper, a memory humming softly through the black. It is the cosmic afterglow of everything that ever existed. Every particle of that glow carries the story of the stars, of Earth, of you. Even now in the dark, the universe remembers itself through that final light. Eventually, even photons will find no space left to travel. The expansion will have stretched the very fabric of existence so wide that cannot move. Frozen in place, red shifted into stillness. Light will stop not because it has gone out, but because it has nowhere left to go. The last flicker of the cosmos will be everywhere at once, a quiet radiance woven into the structure of reality itself. And that will be the universe's final dawn. A soft, endless glow that never changes, never fades, never rises or falls. A dawn that belongs to no one and nothing, yet holds everything that ever was. If there were consciousness to witness it, some spark of awareness adrift among the remnants, it might see beauty in this stillness. It might realize that light never truly dies, it only rests. It might understand that the universe has not ended, but found peace. Because the final act of light is not disappearance, it is surrender. The stars have gone quiet, the planets have grown cold, but the glow that once united them continues to hum, faintly, like a lullaby sung by creation itself. And somewhere within that infinite calm, the earth, frozen, silent, perfect, continues to drift through the last light of the universe. No longer illuminated, but still touched by it, still remembered. If you listen deeply enough, across the impossible distance of forever, you might hear it, not a voice, not a sound, but a feeling. Everything that was light is still light. Everything that was life is still part of me. The last light is not an ending. It is the universe closing its eyes, not to die, but to rest. There is no more movement, no more warmth, no more light, only the quiet, infinite stillness of everything that ever was. The universe has reached its final moment, not a crash, not a collapse, but a gentle rest. All that once blazed, burned and shimmered has cooled into perfect calm. Every atom, every particle, every photon has found balance. Nothing pulls, nothing falls, nothing fights. It is peace in its purest form. Earth drifts within this stillness, but even the word drift has lost meaning. There is no direction anymore. No up, no down, no before, no after. Time itself has thinned into a single eternal moment. If motion was once the heartbeat of existence, now that heart sleeps. Not broken, not dead, just sleeping. The planet, once full of oceans, storms, and dreams, now rests as a sculpture of pure quiet. The mountains no longer rise or crumble. The seas no longer freeze or thaw. The air no longer moves, because there is no air, no wind, no sky, only stillness. Perfect, absolute stillness. The last warmth from Earth's core faded eons ago. Now it matches the temperature of the universe, a fraction of a degree above nothing. Its iron heart has solidified completely, gleaming with quiet strength, like a frozen memory. Each atom sits exactly where it will remain forever. No vibration, no decay, no sound, only permanence. Around it, space has stretched beyond comprehension. Galaxies have drifted too far apart to ever see one another again. Even black holes, the universe's most enduring shadows, have evaporated into faint sighs of energy and disappeared. The cosmic stage is empty. No light, no matter in motion, only the lingering outline of creation itself. And yet, there is something strangely peaceful about this emptiness. It feels less like an ending and more like a return, as if the universe has finally exhaled after an eternity of expansion. Every burst of energy, every supernova, Every heartbeat that ever echoed within it has blended into a single quiet presence. It is not absence. It is completion. If awareness could exist here, something beyond time, beyond thought, it would see beauty even in this stillness. It would understand that every star that ever shone, every world that ever turned, every creature that ever breathed, all of it was part of one long, graceful motion toward peace. The silence is not cruel. It is kind. It is the end of need, the end of struggle, the end of becoming. And in that quiet, the earth, though frozen, forgotten, and unseen, still is. It exists as the memory of everything that ever lived. It carries the record of sunlight and laughter, of oceans and rain, of minds that once looked up and asked why. Even in silence, that memory endures. It has no shape, no sound, no boundary. It simply is. At last, the universe falls completely still. No movement remains. No decay, no growth. It has reached its final eternal equilibrium, the state it was always moving toward. Everything has become one. There are no clocks here, no observers, no passage of time, because time itself has joined the rest. There is no longer before or after. Only now. Only the endless, tranquil presence of what has been fulfilled. If there were a final sound, it would not be an explosion. It would be a sigh, a soft whisper that says, "It was enough." And then, even the whisper would fade. Not into nothingness, but into stillness so complete that it needs no name. The universe does not end. It rests. In this eternal rest, the story of everything, of stars and atoms, of oceans and hearts, continues in another form, as harmony, as peace, and somewhere within that peace, within the infinite stillness that holds all of creation, a faint echo of earth remains, a tiny, perfect thought suspended forever, still whispering across the quiet fabric of eternity. We were here, we saw the stars, and we loved the light.